Hello everyone, welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today I'm going to be talking about why 2024 will be a different election year and why Trump could very well easily win the 2024 presidential election. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'm going to start by filling out these safe states. I will be using plus 15 as the category for the safe states in this electoral college map. And so we see the states of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, Nebraska's 3rd congressional district alongside the 1st congressional district with the at-large vote. You also have the state of Kansas, which voted for Donald Trump by under 15 points in the electoral college last cycle, but it has actually joined the safe category as I do expect it to vote a couple of points to the right from 2020. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, Iowa, and Ohio will be joining the safe Republican column. According to my election model, Iowa and Ohio are going to be around 18 percentage point victories as of right now for the former president, continuing the trends from the 2016 presidential election with white working class voters in the Midwest. The state of South Carolina will join the plus 15 column as Donald Trump will make serious gains with African American voters nationwide. Alaska, despite it being a left-trending state, I will expect it to vote by over 15 points for Donald Trump in this scenario. And we can see that Donald Trump is sitting at around 148 electoral college votes. I expect Joe Biden to be winning the states of California, DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont by over 15 points in this scenario, which only gives him a mere 81 electoral college votes. For the likely Republican states, we are going to see the states of Texas and Florida be in the likely Republican column. My model currently projects them to be very large victories. However, I do suspect that they're going to vote by under 15 percentage points. As of right now, Donald Trump will probably win Florida by around 13 points, Texas by around 11, 12 percentage points as of right now. We can keep continuing the likely category as the states of North Carolina and Georgia are going to be joining this category. North Carolina will be around a 9-point victory for the former president, with Georgia being around an 8-point win for the former president. Donald Trump is currently leading in North Carolina and Georgia by over 6 points according to 538 and RCP, which shows that Donald Trump is well outside the margin of error in these quote unquote swing states, which they are no longer swing states in this projection as they vote for Donald Trump by over 5 percentage points. If we look at the state of Arizona, despite it trending to the left by quite a bit and it being a Biden state in 2020, I do expect it to vote by over 5 points for Donald Trump, possibly by 6 to 7 points. Donald Trump is gaining with Hispanics nationwide as of right now, and I do expect that trend to continue from 2020 and affect a state like Arizona, especially since it is bordering the southern border. States like Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico will in fact have inflated Donald Trump support as the southern border is a crucial issue this year and is affecting many voters in those states. I'd also expect the state of Nevada to be a likely Republican state for the former president, as Donald Trump is making gains with Hispanic voters, and the state has been trending to the right ever since 2008. If we look at Maine second, I do expect it to vote under a 15-point margin, but I do expect it to be around a 13, 14-point win for the former president, as polling does show Maine actually being a lean Donald Trump state when you average out all of the latest polls. Now, for the likely Democratic states, we're going to have Washington and Oregon join this category. As you can see, these states voted for Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election by a very considerable amount. However, the problem now is that Biden's approval rating is so low and the polling has narrowed up so much in these swing states that I probably am going to put them in the likely category as of right now. The state of Washington is actually very interesting because the polling there, the aggregate's actually under 5 points. If you averaged out all of the latest polls from Washington, it would actually give you a 4-point leaning average in all of the polls. However, I do expect it to vote, to the left of that. I think it'll probably be around an 8-point victory for Biden, and he'll win Oregon by around 6 or 7 points. The state of Hawaii, I actually think will vote under 15 points. The latest poll does show the state being an 8-point victory with third-party voters, which is a lot closer than I would have expected any polling data from the state to be. And so I'd say around a 13 or 14-point victory is a pretty solid case in the state of Hawaii. A state like Colorado has been trending to the left ever since 2008, where it started trending to the left majorly because of white voters in the suburban areas in Denver. However, I do expect the state to narrow up from 2020, but compared to the rest of the national environment, I do expect it to vote to the left of the nation as a whole by a couple of points. As of right now, I expect it to be around a 6 or 7 point victory for the incumbent president. The state of Illinois, I actually expect to get much closer. I think it'll be a 5 to 6 point victory for the incumbent president. Joe Biden has been, definitely won the state by quite a bit in 2020. He won it by 17 points. However, this time around, I actually expect Joe Biden to only win it by 5, as Donald Trump has been making gains with African American voters nationwide. I expect the states of Rhode Island, Delaware, and Connecticut to be likely states for the incumbent president. These states have trended to the left in 2020. However, due to the national environment and Biden's unpopularity, I do expect these to get significantly closer compared to that election. The state of New York will probably vote by around 11 to 12 points for the incumbent president. This would be a huge decrease from the 23-point victory that was brought about us in 2020. However, I do expect Donald Trump to gain a lot of African American and Hispanic support in the New York City boroughs, and I expect him to gain minimally in the upstate part of the state. And so that'll give Biden around 11 or 12-point victory in the state of New York. Maine's first, I expect it to vote by under 15 points. It'll probably be around a 13, 14-point victory for Joe Biden. The district did vote for him by about 23 points in the 2020 presidential election. I do expect this to be a smaller victory, and that'll put the state of Maine in a pretty competitive spot in 2024. As we can see, Donald Trump is around 268 electoral college votes. Nebraska's second would be more than enough to get him to 69, which would give him the victory in the electoral college, as he would tie, and the House of Representatives would more than likely vote him into the White House. He's probably going to win Nebraska's second by 3 to 4 points. This district has been redistricted to be slightly more Republican compared to its predecessor design. And so I expect Donald Trump to win this by around a lean margin in the 2024 presidential election. For the lean Biden states, I expect Virginia and New Jersey to fall in this column, as polling suggests that these states could be very competitive. Virginia, it's within the margin of error, and New Jersey, the latest poll with third-party voters, actually shows Joe Biden only winning it by 5. And if you apply the 538, polling error, so basically if you look at the polling aggregate in 2020 compared to a real result, it was off by 4.7% in Biden's favor. And so if you were to apply that to the latest poll, that actually put New Jersey in the tilt, column. Now, I don't think it's going to be tilt. However, I do think it could possibly be under 5. You did have the governor's race there be ridiculously close in 2021. So that may be a sign that, running a MAGA candidate may actually be a good idea in the state of New Jersey, and there could be a shifting tide. We're going to see a likely victory in the state of Wisconsin. Donald Trump right now is leading the state by 1.2% on the national level. However, major polling errors suggest that he'd be able to win the state by 7 to 9 points, depending on how big the error is, as Wisconsin polling errors in 2016 and 2020 both showed Donald Trump being underestimated by 6 to 8 points, depending if you were looking at Real Clear Politics or 538. So I'd say the state of Wisconsin would be around a 7 to 9 point victory for the former president. Michigan is a current lead of around, basically a tilt Biden margin to a tilt Trump margin, depending on the aggregate you're looking at. And as of right now, I do expect him to win it by over 5 points. I'd say around a 6 to 7 point victory would be pretty convincing. I do think it's going to vote to the right of Pennsylvania, as you're going to have a lot of, Muslim communities fall out and turn out due to the whole Israel-Hamas conflict. I think that's going to really affect the results in Michigan. Pennsylvania will still be a likely margin. However, I do think it'll only be a 5 to 6 point win. So it'll vote to the left of Michigan in this scenario. And so the final states we have here are New Mexico, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Maine at large. As of right now, The polling does show Donald Trump up in the state of Maine by around 4 percentage points if you were to average out all of the three polls from the past couple of months. So in this electoral college scenario, I'm going to give Donald Trump the state of Maine by around a point or so. Third party candidates are really affecting the results this year, hence why you are seeing a pretty large electoral college victory for Donald Trump in this scenario. I expect him to probably win it by a point or so as of right now. I think the state of New Hampshire is going to be a very competitive one. I think it's trended massively to the left since the 2020 presidential election and even the 2016 election, where it actually voted by a tilt margin for Hillary Clinton. However, I do expect Biden to still hold on to the state, as Donald Trump did very poorly in the primary here compared to expectations. Despite it being crossover votes, you can see that there is clearly a very, very big, anti-Trump sentiment in the state of New Hampshire, and I'd actually expect Biden to barely hold on to it in 2024. The state of New Mexico is interesting because we are seeing a very large Hispanic shift nationwide. I think Donald Trump's going to get in the low 40s with Hispanics, and so that might be more than enough to actually give Donald Trump the state by around a point and a half or so. I think it's going to shift massively to the right and even trend right compared to the nation as a whole. And I think Donald Trump will be able to win the state of New Mexico by around a point and a half. The white vote in the state actually is able to make the state more Democrat than what it even should be, especially looking at the demographics with it being, basically the majority Hispanic state. It is the most Hispanic majority state in the entire nation, besides Texas, which takes the number 2 spot. However, I think that in New Mexico, you are going to see a large shift here, and Donald Trump will probably end up winning it as of right now. In the state of Minnesota, we are going to see Donald Trump barely pick it off. Polling data has this really close, and you see that Biden had a very poor performance in the primary, only getting around 71% of the vote in his own primary, while Donald Trump managed to get around 69%, showing that Donald Trump, as the non-incumbent, almost got more of a percentage in the primary than the incumbent president, showing that Biden clearly has a very, very big base problem. In the Minneapolis area, you do have a lot of protest votes around the whole Israel-Hamas conflict and a lot of uncommitted voters. And so I do expect Donald Trump to be able to barely pick off the state as of right now. And so that would give Donald Trump 330 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 208 electoral college votes. I know a lot of you guys are thinking, well, this is ridiculous. There's no way Donald Trump's going to be able to win by this margin. However, there are several things to talk about. This month is actually the first month that Donald Trump was actually able to outraise Joe Biden in fundraising. And so that is a big warning sign for the Biden campaign. Trump's internals also show that Virginia, Minnesota, and New Jersey are potentially going to be competitive, hence why the campaign has been going here. A lot of people suspect that Donald Trump is going there for down ballot races. However, I do actually think the campaign probably sees something that a lot of us are not seeing, and they see potential pickups in these states as of right now. And previous historical polling errors suggest that, according to the current polls, they could actually be within, 3 to 4 points, and would actually make sense for the Trump campaign to target these. And it would also make sense as to why they're not really going to Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania as much as people think they should, because they may end up voting for Donald Trump by over 5 points, which in that case, Donald Trump would only have to go to them a couple of times in order to really cement this margin of victory there. Have you also noticed, Joe Biden is really trying to contest that debate, for Donald Trump. He really wanted to do it as early as humanly possible, which is a very interesting tactic. I suspect that Donald Trump, accepted the debate because he has been saying, I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, any place. But I believe Joe Biden wanted it on his own terms and as early as possible to be able to avoid any political effects that could come from the presidential debate. However, I expect this to backfire, as I think the fact that, having them mute their microphones after each turn is actually going to help Trump this time, because Trump, you basically stopped Biden from making a lot of gaffes that could have potentially really hurt him in the 2020 presidential election. A lot of Biden gaffes, revolving, the Republican Congress thing that he did and he just kind of froze, or the whole fracking issue. And I think a lot of gaffes that Biden made, if he hadn't made those, he probably could have picked off North Carolina and could have even made Florida a little bit more competitive in 2020. So there is a little bit of an effect from the debates. But I do think that this time it'll help Donald Trump. You also have the political indictments. That's not really helping Joe Biden either, because people clearly notice that these are, basically witch hunt indictments as of right now. A lot of people feel that way, even though we can know for certain if he's guilty or not of the crime. We can notice that, these cases are brought about right before the election cycle, and they could have been brought about any single time in it. Basically in the rest of time, they could have been brought about at any place, any time, and they decided to do it right before an election cycle. And I think a lot of people notice that that is a very interesting choice from a lot of these, courts and things like that. And so that is basically my analysis as to why 2024 is not going to be the same type of election that 2016 or 2020 was, and that Donald Trump may actually be able to enjoy a pretty easy electoral college victory as of right now. Things could change, but this is where I see the race being. If you guys did enjoy the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.